Hello and welcome to Oceania Weekly. I'm Stephanie Greenfield. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has warned that the devastating bushfires raging in the country might go on for months. At least 24 people have died since the fires began in September. Air quality in the capital Canberra last weekend was rated the worst in the world. Mr Morrison announced the creation of a recovery agency to help those who have lost homes and businesses in the fires. He has faced fierce criticism over the speed of his response to the crisis. Conditions eased in Victoria and New South Wales on Sunday after temperatures and wind speeds dropped and some light rain fell, but authorities warned that the danger was far from over. Scott Morrison says he accepts climate change is driving longer, hotter and drier summer seasons, and the government's emissions targets need to evolve. The Prime Minister has faced criticism for lacking ambition on cutting Australia's emissions, and many of his coalition colleagues have downplayed the link between climate change and the devastating bushfires. Australia has pledged to cut emissions by 26% on 2005 levels by 2030 under the Paris Agreement. Mr Morrison acknowledged some within coalition ranks felt climate change had nothing to do with the bushfires. New Zealand is unlikely to be much affected by ash from Australia's bushfires, but vulnerable people should be sensible and care should be taken around untreated drinking water, a physicist says. More than 2,000 kilometres away, New Zealand has over the past week seen strange, smoky orange skies overhead. Auckland University Professor of Physics Richard Easter told the hazy weather was definitely from the fires in Australia, with satellite imagery clearly showing the smoke visible drifting across the Tasman Sea. The head of the newly established Bushfire Recovery Agency, Andrew Colvin, says he'll assess the damage on the ground as soon as possible. But Bushfire Recovery Agency is developing an assistance package for businesses affected by bushfires raging across Australia. The Australian government is currently offering a one-off $1,000 payment for bushfire victims, as well as 13 weeks of income support. Mr Littleproud said that he would announce a program in the coming days that would see bushfire-affected businesses eligible for interest-free loans. He said that he will give $500,000 loans, interest-free, repayment-free for 2 years, that will help them rebuild their cash flow. According to the Henley Passport Index, which tracks the number of visa-free travel options for passport holders, New Zealand has dropped to 9th place in the global rankings. This is down a place on last year and 5 whole places since its top ranking in 2015. Japan was top of the list for the 3rd year with visa-free access to an impressive 191 destinations. It outpaced Singapore by 1 place, with which shared the title of world's most powerful passport last year. South Korea holds joint 3rd place with the German EU passport, granting access to 189 countries visa-free. With access to an impressive 183 countries, New Zealand's passport is firmly in the top 10 and still a valuable asset to any international traveller. The Kiwi passport, which was ranked 4th in 2015, now shares 9th place with Canada and Australia. The national average property market value continues to grow, Auckland values up 1.9% in the last quarter. In December last year, the average property value in Auckland was $1.047 million, slightly down from $1.048 million in 2018. However, prices were up 1.9% over the past 3 months, the strongest rise since November 2016. CoreLogic Head of Research Nick Goodall said the price leap helped wipe out losses experienced during the sluggish start to 2019. According to the CoreLogic QV December 2019 House Price Index, properties values rose by 0.9% over the month, with the annual rate of growth increasing to 4%. Australian troops will remain in Iraq despite Iranian strikes on US-led military bases in the country, with Prime Minister Scott Morrison committing to the mission in the Middle East. Mr Morrison welcomed the de-escalating response. He said Australia was focused on ensuring Iraq remained united and stable while keeping Islamic State militants at bay. Morrison said what the government is doing is remaining committed to the mission. Iran last Wednesday launched more than a dozen missiles against 2 US-led military bases in Iraq, in response to the US assassination of an Iranian military chief. Australian troops close to the attacked Al-Assad base were confirmed safe, with another 300 diggers further north unaffected by the rocket strikes. Lewis Hamilton says he will donate more than £380,000 to support the fire service and animal welfare charities affected by the fires in Australia. Lewis, the Formula One world champion, pledged $500,000 and says he can't help but grieve for the defenceless animals thought to have died in the fires. The bushfires have burnt more than 6.3 million hectares across the country and 27 people have died. Hamilton urged Australia to keep fighting in a message on Instagram. Alongside a video of a koala being rescued, the 35-year-old Mercedes driver wrote that 1 billion animals in Australia died a painful death, no way out, and not their fault. Car maker Toyota has unveiled plans for a 2,000-person City of the Future, where it will test autonomous vehicles, smart technology, and robot-assisted living. The ambitious project, dubbed Woven City, is set to break ground next year in the foothills of Japan's Mount Fuji, about 60 miles from Tokyo. Announcing the project at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Toyota CEO Akito Toyoda described the new city as a living laboratory that will allow researchers, scientists, and engineers to test emerging technology in a real-life environment. The new development will be set across a 175-acre site that was previously home to a Toyota factory. Only fully autonomous and zero-emission cars will be permitted to operate on its streets. Lunar New Year is still 2 weeks away, but China is already bracing itself for an annual homecoming of epic proportions. Considered the largest human migration on the planet, Chuanyun, the 40-day period when Chinese people head home to celebrate the Lunar New Year Spring Festival with their families, officially began on January the 10th and will end on February the 18th. Lunar New Year falls on January the 25th this year, the earliest Lunar New Year since 2012. This means the beginning of the Spring Festival rush, when workers begin their journey home, will overlap with a peak time when college students begin winter holidays, putting even a bigger strain on the nation's infrastructure. Some 3 billion trips are expected to be made during the 2020 Changyun period, a slight increase from last year's figure. A 5G-based telematics control unit jointly developed by Samsung Electronics and its affiliated Harman will be equipped in BMW's electric vehicles. At the 2020 Consumer Electronics Show, held at the Las Vegas Convention Center in the US, Samsung Electronics said that its 5G telematics control unit will be installed in BMW's all-electric vehicle iNext, which is scheduled to be mass-produced from 2021. The South Korean tech giant's 2016 acquisition of Harman, the global leader in car audio and automotive supplies, is creating a synergistic effect in the automotive sector. Automotive is one of Samsung's key growth drivers that Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong has been pushing forward. While driving, drivers will be able to download high-resolution videos and maps in real time and have a video conference. Thank you for joining us here at Oceania Weekly. I'll see you next week.